Welcome to the Meditation Conversation, the podcast to support your spiritual revolution. I'm your host, Kara Goodwin. I'm really excited for you to hear this amazing episode with Aleya. I have found Aleya to be an incredibly unique and gifted energy practitioner, and that comes through loud and clear in this episode. I invite you to pay particular attention to the signals you might get from your body as you listen. You'll hear me interject a couple of times while she's talking as I report what I'm feeling in my body. Aleya talks about the body as a nature spirit, and if you notice sensations as you listen to her, it might help you to connect with your own body expressing itself as a nature spirit. Super fun. Aleya is a sound healer, energy practitioner, and a licensed acupuncturist in Colorado, a minister in the state of California, and a doctor of Oriental medicine in New Mexico. She's been an alternative healer for over 30 years. In 2001, she had an enlightenment experience that enabled her to perceive other realms, hear angelic beings, and increased her empathic and clairvoyant abilities. Aleya has mastered the ability to help people release the root causes of their suffering. Her tools help people discover how to move forward with greater peace, empowerment, and freedom. All right, we're going to dive into Aleya's episode momentarily, but first, be sure you check out karagoodwin.com, where you can get a free 10-minute meditation. If you want support for your meditation practice, I have a 21-day online program to help you develop your own practice. There's also the Healing Hearth membership, where you can get live online assistance with your questions about meditation and life. And I also have a recorded Sacred Geometry workshop series available. All of that and more at karagoodwin.com. And now, enjoy this episode. Thanks. Well, welcome, Aleya. I am really excited to connect with you today. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Well, I was just a guest on your podcast, and I'm so excited that we're doing this little swap. And I've been loving listening to your podcast too. I want to make sure that everybody knows that that it's out there, because your voice is just amazing, and you do these energy protocols. They're like quick hits, but they're very deep. So why don't we start? Can you talk a little bit about that, and then we'll lead into your journey and how you came to be doing this work?
Absolutely. So in 2009, I actually started recording what I call the daily meditations, but they're really daily cups of consciousness. And it's not very different from meditation, but it actually sets you up for meditation, where it's an energetic process or protocol or prayer for your energetic fields to move you into a place of stillness, to release empathic sensitivity, to release responsibilities that you might be holding or retrieve responsibilities, essentially moving you back into a vibration of your essence and greater alignment, which then increases your capacity to connect deeply with the light that flows within you.
Wow. Okay, and that is amazing. Now, you mentioned this cups of consciousness, and I know that this is kind of an anchor in your work. Can you talk about what you mean by the cups of consciousness?
Yes. So I think it was 2006, my husband and I were on a beach walk in Santa Barbara, and he said to me, is it possible for you to write down, like what it is you do with people so that you can explain it more deeply? Because I was talking to him and I was like, well, yeah, this person wants to come in for a session, and they were kind of asking what I do. And I was like, I do so much. And how do you distill it down into just a few sentences? And back then there was like sort of the elevator talk of like, okay, in 30 seconds or less, can you explain what you really, really do with people? And so then the next day I jumped on a plane and I was flying back to Telluride, because I had a practice in Telluride in Santa Barbara. And at 30,000 feet or 20,000 feet, the veils are much thinner between the realms, and you can experience energy really differently than when you're at sea level. And within, I want to say 8 to 10 minutes, I wrote down these 7 sentences. And the 7 sentences were essentially the framework of what I do. And those 7 sentences became my book, 7 Cups of Consciousness. And with each concept or each sentence, it explains a concept that helps you live from a more connected, empowered way of being, using your energetic fields, using your consciousness. And it's interesting because our consciousness is reflection of what we're holding in our energetic fields. So when we start learning how to use our energy fields, it accelerates our spiritual growth, our evolution, our awakening, releasing suffering, moving into deeper connection. So the 7 cups are in the book, 7 cups of consciousness. And they're also, these concepts are distilled into the daily cups of consciousness that I deliver, little 7-minute audio meditations or energetic protocols 5 days a week. And then every 3 weeks, I do an hour-long energy balancing session called the Tall Cups of Consciousness.
Amazing. So as you were talking about that, I noticed this almost like a current that showed up in the back of my heart, um, kind of between the thymus
Right? Like
and
your high heart.
kind of in between both of
Oh,
them
very
and
cool.
kind of on the right side. And so that was very cool and very interesting, and I wanted to point that out for a couple of reasons. One, in case I want people to tune into their own bodies so that if they're feeling those responses or they don't miss those responses as you're speaking. But I also kind of associate it with just your voice, your presence. Um, I don't have I could guess as to what that is, but,
Go for it.
I
Yes.
well, it's like the back of my heart, I feel like is more related to the past. That connection between it felt almost like a current that was, like, linking those 2 parts. Really felt, like it felt like a current, like there was electricity with it. Um that's about as far as I got with it
Very
because I
cool.
was also very, engaged with what you were talking about, but I
Very
was like,
cool.
"Oh, what is that?"
I love it.
So,
So
you know
it's interesting that you talk about that because um, in 2001, I had an enlightenment experience where I remembered and was able to embody all of my training that I experienced before I came here into this incarnation. And so on the other side, that we sometimes refer to as home or we refer to as the real world, I I recall all of the training that I experienced on the other side. And so these 7 concepts are essentially that information. And so the past might be you accessing the information that you embody. And we all know that comes from the other side, concepts, ways of holding self that have the capacity to support us in a really empowered, connected way.
Thank you for that. Well, I do feel whenever I listen to your voice that there's just a lot of transmission in the voice itself. There's a lot of fantastic, um, very high words that you say, which I feel like, "Where are my words?" I'm like, they're really high what are those things that we say with our mouths? I'm like, "Where are my words? Kara, come on, get yourself together." Um, but so you're like, when you explain things even in those 7 minutes that you release in your podcast, it's this, like, they're high concepts,
Mhm.
and, you're talking about multidimensionality, you're talking about energy layers, you're talking about moving through dimensions, and so it's going to appeal to people who are, interested in development and are not taking their first step on the path
Absolutely.
necessarily.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm not, like if nobody's ever worked with their energy centers before or their breath before, um, I recommend this work really for people who have done some form of meditation. I started doing TM when I was 10
Oh,
and
wow.
did TM for 30 years before I developed the energetic protocols. And I'm not saying that you have to do TM for 30 years before you start with these energetic concepts, but um, it's either somebody who's really advanced in their meditation techniques and they want to take it to kind of the next level where they listen to an energetic protocol and then they do their meditation practice. Or it could be somebody that has this deep knowing of I I have a wisdom within me, but I can't remember it. And, it might be the highly sensitive. It might be the old soul. And so with that, then there'd have to be a little bit of a leap of trusting and knowing that your energetic self is 1,000 times wiser than your mind. And then when you listen to the energetic protocols, your inner mantra is, I'm just letting some energetic aspect of me do the work and get this. I'm not tracking any of these words with my mind. And I've found that with my students, with my clients, that people that let go of their mind, meaning let go of tracking all of the work with the mind, their energy fields immediately kick in and start doing the work. And then the conscious awareness of the mind has the reflection of what our energetic fields are doing. So I really think also in meditation, when we can quiet the mind, our energy fields kick in and they connect in with that wiser, diviner, more empowered aspect of ourselves.
Yeah, that's what I was feeling was that even if you can't necessarily intellectually track what is being said or instructed or suggested, that there are parts of us that would understand, but it's not maybe necessarily for everybody's intellectual mind.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So would you be willing to share I know you had an enlightenment experience in 2001. You kind of alluded to that earlier, but can you talk to us about what that entailed for
Yeah.
you?
So, for years I'd been, you know, pushing the door of enlightenment for an enlightenment experience. And I, had become a doctor of Oriental medicine. I had become a Reiki master. I had studied craniosacral. So I was kind of really deeply entrenched in alternative medicine and spirituality. Not so much energy work, but more Oriental medicine has those components. And I was able to literally look at the body and see white lines and see where the pools of energy were, which were acupuncture points. And so I knew that there was an esoteric aspect of us. I was very open to that, had perceived it, experienced it, utilized it in my daily practice with my clients and myself. And then in 2001, I met a man who did sound healing sessions, and he had a massage table essentially that was filled with water and then huge speakers underneath this water bladder. And I set up an appointment with him and I came for a session and I was like, wow, this is amazing. I want to do it again. And a couple of weeks later, I went back for the sound healing table session and there were these crystals hanging over. It was in Ridgway, Colorado. And lying on the table, hearing this beautiful music like drums and flutes and singing. And then within 30 seconds, there was this huge bright white light. My perspective completely shifted and kind of saw myself shooting through this tunnel of light and actually came through Stonehenge, the circle. There's like a portal there. And then opened my eyes and my consciousness had completely shifted. I could feel my energy fields. I could feel an angelic presence around me. I could hear everything they were saying to me. I could feel the energy and the emotions and the thoughts and sort of this vibrational fabric that I call grids that another person was holding inside themselves. And so for 3 years with this shift in awareness, conscious multidimensional reality, it continued to build. So a lot of the times we have an enlightenment experience or a teeny tiny little enlightenment mini moment, and then it slips away. But this one kept building and building and building. And fortunately, I called what I had the angelic Bluetooth headset, and my people in the balcony were right there with me the entire time, being like, okay, now hold this energy. Now do this. Now ponder that. It wasn't disempowering. It was very supportive. Because I think when we have that shift in consciousness and we're able to perceive multiple dimensions and we're able to feel the emotions of another person, for some people that could be called crazy, disorienting. And for me, it was very orienting because I had a framework of support that had been set up for this experience. So after 3 years of kind of integrating it, then I started utilizing these concepts in a deeper way in my private practice, right? We always want to receive our gifts first before we give them away. And then over time, it's just slowly built. So now we're going on 23 years of holding this high level of sensitivity, conscious multidimensional reality, perceptions of the energy, highly sensitive. So I have to be very discerning about how I hold myself, how I interact and engage. It's part of the responsibility of being sensitive. Um, and so that's the background story.
Well, that is fantastic. And you said that lasted 3
Well,
years?
3 years of integration, and then
Okay.
probably another 5 years of just practicing. And then it took about 10 to 11 years to really settle. And now, 23 years later, I feel like, okay, let's just keep building on this.
So you can still see, like, the energy, and you still hear the guidance from
Yeah.
those in the balcony, and
Yeah. And it's more precise now. So over the years, with this high level of sensitivity, it's almost like we've got these energetic receptors and we're constantly picking up information. And so the more conscious we are, aware we are, we can calibrate those energetic receptors to tune into a very specific signal. So each person carries a signal. Their body has a signal. Their emotional field has signals. Their ancestors have signals. The team that encircles us have signals. And so I've just gotten a lot more refined in being able to hone in and listen to or receive information of, okay, so if somebody's in session and they have a challenge, I can go, okay, well, let's look at that. Let's really tune in and see where that challenge is really coming from. And it could be 7 incarnations ago of why they have this thing that just keeps repeating every lifetime.
wow. So let's go back to what you were talking about at the very beginning, where you were saying that you kind of got that view into work that you had done before you got here. Do you have a sense of human terms of what we would call that, like the angelic realm, or where you were when you had that training? Are there labels for it?
Yeah. So the whales and the dolphins, from my perspective, also exist on a planet called Sirius. And Sirius has not physical life, it's more multidimensional. So there's dimensions on Sirius where there is consciousness, there are civilizations, there's a civilization, and there are beings that are very wise. And so from Sirius, I was I call it my home, where I'll go back to when I'm done here. And for a little rest bit, more training. But when people are really aligned with whales and dolphins, they're actually aligned with Syrian consciousness. And Syrians can be fairly serious, but we're working on cultivating more humor. And there are very particular ways of holding self there that create an empowered way of being. And so that's really what I speak to in terms of our current level of consciousness that we're experiencing here on the planet. And what are 3 things or 4 things or 5 things that you could do that would move you into a more empowered way of being and not get entrenched in perceptions of disconnection.
Beautiful. So I know that you work a lot in a multidimensional way, which I was mentioning with your podcast. When people listen, they will hear you talking about, like, across the dimensions and timelines and so forth. Can you help people understand what you mean when you say that we live in a multidimensional way?
Absolutely. It's a brilliant question because it sounds so complicated. Like, you don't know, multidimensional, fifth dimensional being, like, what's that really about? And years ago, I think it was maybe 5 or 7 years ago, 5 or 7 years after my enlightenment experience, in dream time, I said to my guides, so how many dimensions are on this planet? And they said to me at the time, 48 other. So then I kept tuning in. I'm like, maybe there's 52 dimensions, kind of feels right. I think that when a planet is going through an evolution, the dimensions change because we get dimensional merges. But we want to think about it like the physical dimension is the lobby. And then we've got the second floor, and there's activity happening on the second floor, and that carries a different vibration, different sounds, different consciousness. And then there's the third floor. And so we're in let's just pretend, a 52 floor building, and things are happening simultaneously on every single floor. Now, the thing that's a little overwhelming for our mental body is to think about these 54 floors all happening in the same time and space. So right now I'm having 52 experiences just on this planet. But then if we think about ourselves in dimensions that are off planet, well, you're also a multidimensional being off planet as well. And so think about dimensions as different floors of a building, and think about the vibration that you hold inside yourself in what I call your divine line that runs on the front of the spine for the soul that's riding in the body, and the divine line that runs through the spine, the spinal cord, that body, Deva, nature spirit, physical human form that you're riding in. We have these two lines of light. And when I had that enlightenment experience, I could very clearly perceive these two lines of light. And prior to that, I had just seen a line of light. But when we recognize that we've got these two lines of light, two consciousnesses, then we can start tuning into this vibration that flows in the divine line, activating and amplifying more supportive harmonic vibrations that are in alignment with our essence in our divine line. The higher or more harmonic a vibration you're holding in your divine line naturally tunes you into more harmonic dimensions. So when children have nightmares, they might be not consciously tuning into their divine mind and feeling all these discordant energies that are negatively impacting their divine mind, not distorting their essence at all, but kind of like they're in this darker soup. And so they'd have nightmares. And so when we start really working on amplifying harmonic supportive qualities in the core, it could just be kindness or peace, then we naturally tune into more harmonic dimensions that have the capacity to support us.
Beautiful.
I kind of went all over the place on that question.
Well, I think we
Multiple
hit
dimensions.
Yes. I mean, yeah, if you could just really, have a really precise and quick definition of multidimensionality,
Right,
that'd be
like quick
great.
meditation doesn't exist. Quick enlightenment,
Right.
no.
Yeah. Just do this enlightenment really fast.
Right.
Um, did you get a chance to talk about the energetic protocols? We touched on it. Can we talk a little bit more about that, or
Yeah.
do you feel that part was complete?
No, absolutely. Because
Okay.
I think that when we're wanting to shift our energy fields, we go like, how? How do we do that? And I'm all about the how, because I get frustrated very quickly if it's not efficient and I don't feel a shift within a few seconds, 30 seconds, then I'm like, that didn't work. So we want to think about an energetic protocol having 7 steps. And prayers used to have, or the good ones, they used to have 7 steps. That's a full working prayer. I don't use the word prayer because there's so many people that have had negative experiences over many incarnations with prayer, i.e., tagged in with religion, that can sometimes cause trauma. And so I use the word protocol. And the very first concept or step in a protocol is to recognize that we live in a multidimensional reality. The second step to a prayer is to recognize that you are not alone. You have a presence that are around you that can positively, empathically impact you. And then the third step of a prayer is recognizing that you are a divine being and there is an energy inside yourself that you can activate and amplify for supportive transformation. And then the fourth step is to recognize that there is a challenge that's gotten your attention and you're wanting to move it into a more harmonic energy. And the fourth step of a prayer is, I don't want to say the most powerful because every step is important, but we want to think about our journey as we do the opposite of that which we're intending on trying to master because we're asleep, until we cultivate a certain level of awareness by getting slapped awake. And then we can begin to practice that which we intend to master. So I'll be in disempowerment or the victim to cultivate more empowerment. I'll be in lack and fear of loss to cultivate the abundance, the enough within. So the fourth step of a prayer is always flipping it into what is it you're really wanting to embody. And then the fifth concept or step in a prayer is to encompass the body. Our body is a nature spirit. And so we always want to bring the body into the work as well. Because if it's just you, the soul shifting, and not your body, or just your body and not your soul, then there's going to be a dissonance. It doesn't reflect into the terrain appropriately. And then the sixth concept speaks to, or the sixth practice in a prayer, step in the prayer, is to recognize that you do have a vibrational mastery that flows within you. It might be integrity. It might be kindness. It might be calm. And whatever you've attained inside yourself is your antidote. It is your solution for whatever your challenge you're experiencing. And then the seventh step is to be in full completion of everything is perfect. Your essence is perfect. You're in a journey, and how can you reflect that and awaken to that more in your terrain? So 7 steps to a protocol prayer that then has a full kick into the field, shifts the consciousness, your thought forms, your emotions, and the physical body, because the physical body is just a reflection of these other dimensions.
Mm, I love it. Can you talk more about how the body is a nature spirit?
Yes. Part
I
of
think that was step 5.
yeah,
Or
it's step 5 in a prayer protocol, but it's also the 5th concept in the book, 7 Cups of Consciousness, where your body is its own being, it has its own energy fields. You are a soul and you have your own energy fields. Your body has this divine line that runs through the spine, the spinal cord. And years ago, I was at Duke University doing a mediation training with my husband, and we were in the cadaver lab. And I had put off going to the cadaver lab for decades because I just didn't want to go there. But it was the time. And so I'm standing in the cadaver lab and I'm holding a spinal cord. And my body said, that's where my divine line runs. And I literally felt this like jolt of energy through my spine. And then there was some professor talking about, different parts of the body in the cadaver lab. And they said, the spinal cord is the one thing that does not age in the body. And I said, body, why is it that this one aspect of yourself, the spinal cord, doesn't age? And the body said, because I hold all of my light in my spinal cord, and I typically don't get to a point in my evolution where I'm radiating my light, flowing in my divine line into every organ, meridian, and cell, and into the energetic fields, because the soul will typically mirror itself all over the body, not recognizing the body's consciousness when the soul starts to awaken. And that over time slowly disempowers the body, negatively impacts the health, the ability to manifest, to create, because we're not in a conscious co-creative
oh
process.
my gosh, I'm getting
And
so
so
many chills, like from my spine up into my head, like the back of my the medulla
your
oblongata.
occiput. Yeah.
Oh,
The occiput is the tunnel of light that comes in and patterns and programs the soul
oh my
and the
God, my
body.
body's like, do you hear her, Kara? Listen to what she's saying. Oh my gosh. Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I was like, whoa.
Oh, it's good. It's good.
Please keep
Yeah.
going.
So
Yeah.
that's the body.
Wow.
You just felt
That's
it.
amazing.
That is your body.
So
Mhm.
the body is so, and you talk about this too in your podcast and in your transmissions where your protocols where you're saying like the intelligence of the body, kind of like tuning into the not just like how we think of intelligence, the mental intelligence, but like your body has a consciousness. But you were talking about like that was really fascinating, the soul coming in and kind of smearing the body, and so the consciousness of the
Mhm.
body then what stays dormant or kind of recedes or
Well, or
suppressed? Okay.
suppressed, rebellious, does the opposite of that which it's intending to master. So when we start to awaken, it's vital that the soul doesn't take over all of the responsibilities of the body. There's this like one liner of like, I love my body. Mm. Okay, what if you, the soul, love your light, divine line, front of spine, and body loves itself? And then we reflect this inner love that we're holding inside ourselves upon each other. And that creates this incredibly co-creative process.
Mm. Okay, I wanna play with something here, and this may not, fit in
Go for it.
quite with your work,
Okay.
but, like, if
Yeah.
we think of the concept of a blueprint, like a soul
Mhm.
blueprint, and, that there is this kind of design to our body, how does this fit into what you're saying? Or does it? Is it something slightly different? Or
Absolutely. So the soul blueprint would be what I refer to as the soul riding in the body. So we've got the soul rider and its blueprint. its energy fields, its grids, its fabric, its wisdom, its mastery, its experiences before it was even here in this world, or previous incarnations when it did ride with the same nature spirit, but just in a different form. And the body is an animal, and it's gone through many iterations. We rode in the body when it was an animal form, because you don't just pop into a human form. A human form is very sensitive, very advanced. We have opposable thumbs. So do whales.
Whales have
And
opposable thumbs?
whales have opposable thumbs in their fins.
Really?
Yes.
Oh my.
They used to walk the land. But that was like millions of years ago. So our body is an animal, and it has its own consciousness, its own needs, its own desires, and it has its own blueprint. And so when we acknowledge that we are living in a nature spirit like a horse, we're riding a horse, we as the soul, as a rider, we don't want to override our body and smear ourselves all over the horse and try to control everything that the horse is doing. The horse has its own wisdom and mastery. So how do you want to ride in the form, or if you were a rider on a horse or seahorse, whale or dolphin, how would you hold yourself? Would you micromanage that horse or that whale or that dolphin or that seahorse? Or would you ride with grace and calm and presence? And well, what do you want, body? You're in the physical terrain. I'm not even in the physical terrain. I'm having an empathic physical experience. What works for you?
I love it. I love it. And I love that you have brought up whales 100 times, because I just had uh, kind of an impromptu session with somebody, and they were like, yes, you've had this lifetime. I think they said I was a mermaid, but I had
Right?
a whale. Like, I was very, very close with this whale that was like it was an ascended master whale.
Like a
Mhm.
guide. Yeah.
And I
Uh-huh.
lent on this whale, like, all throughout my life, and he could see the eye, like, this huge eye of this whale, but
Cool.
this was just, like, 2 days ago, and I've always
Amazing.
felt like I love dolphins, I love whales, like, I really have always been very drawn to them, but that was very, very special for me, and here we are, like, 2 days later, you have no idea that that's happened, and
Love
you're
it.
like, "Yes, and the whales and the dolphins," and like, "Yay."
Yeah. And they taught me how to tone,
Really?
to sound heal, to do. I would go out every morning. Like, they would come to me in dream time and they'd say, Aleya, meet us at Butterfly Beach, when I was living in Santa Barbara. And I would show up at 8 o'clock when they told me to. And then there'd be a pod of dolphins. And sometimes a whale would be there, and they would telepathically communicate with me and show me how to use my voice, bouncing it, spinning it around different energy centers to emit different frequencies for different purposes. So yeah, they're master sound healers as well. But I love that you just had that
Oh my
I had that
gosh.
experience 2 days
So were
ago.
you on the beach and they would come up, like, I mean,
No, so I had a paddle. Actually, I had a kayak
uh
at the time, or a paddleboard, but kayaks were more the thing then. And it was it was like 2004 to 2017. So I would just go out, have a dream, go out in my kayak, and then they'd encircle me, and we'd work for, half an hour. And then they'd be like, okay, you're done with your lesson. And I'd say, thank you. And
oh my
it's
gosh,
goodbye.
that's divine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Lucky.
It was pretty
Wow.
magic. Uh-huh.
Oh my
Uh-huh.
goodness. Well, Aleya, this has just been incredible. What a gift to spend this time with you. Please tell people how they can find you and connect with you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. It's been such a treat to be on your show. And for anybody that does want to explore the energetic protocols, the cups of consciousness, you can get my 7 Cups of Consciousness book on Amazon. Barnes and Noble, New World Library also released it. I have 9 sound healing albums. One of them was released by Sounds True, and the other ones are available on my site, aleyadao.com, ALEYADAO.com. And for all of your listeners, I would love to gift them with a free month of the daily and tall cups of consciousness. So basically 3 to 5 meditations a week, delivered via email and also via an app called Cups of Consciousness. So you can just go to the App Store and download your free Cups of Consciousness app, get a free month, and see if this is your cup of tea.
I love it. Thank you so much. What a joy to be with you today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Meditation Conversation. I'd be so grateful if you would take a moment to share this episode with someone in your life who would appreciate it. Your sharing helps build momentum and make high vibrational content such as this more accessible and easier to find. I'd also be so grateful for you to subscribe to this content. Thank you so much for your support, and I look forward to the next meditation conversation.